appreciate your taking your time to be here. And now I'd like to yield to the Congressman from Virginia, Mr. Bobby Scott.
Thank you, Congressman Watson Coleman, for your leadership in coordinating the special order. And thank you to the Michigan representatives who've been working so hard to try to respond to this tragedy. There'll be a lot of investigations designed to find out what happened, whose fault it was, whether or not any crimes were committed, and how to prevent this from happening in the future. But there's one thing we know, and that is that children have been poisoned by lead exposure. As a ranking member of the Committee on Education in the Workforce, we've begun the process to determine how to appropriately respond, because we know that lead poisoning creates severe challenges to the public school system. Children are entitled to educational opportunity, and that goes back to the Brown v. Board of Education case, where the court found that it is doubtful that any child may reasonably be expected to succeed in life if denied the opportunity of an education, and that opportunity is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. Now, local, state, and federal governments have all failed our children, allowing them to be poisoned by lead exposure, and we owe it to our children to mitigate to the extent possible the adverse effects of lead poisoning so they can achieve an equal educational opportunity. Now, research already shows that the adverse effects from lead exposure is great due to decreased academic attainment, increased need for special education, higher likelihood of behavioral challenges, and it can result to significant loss in earnings, tax revenues, and additional burdens to the criminal justice system, and great stress on our hospital systems. The opportunity for a strong start to a successful life will be stunted for Flint's children if they are not given the necessary resources, including early interventions and access to high-quality early learning programs such as Head Start, to help them overcome the lifelong effects of exposure to lead. Now, we have an obligation to provide these resources and provide them as soon as possible while they can be most effective. Current funding, however, only allows 20% of Flint children who are eligible for Head Start to actually attend Head Start. The children who are able to participate in Head Start can receive early screening services for developmental disabilities. Families can receive counseling and assistance in accessing services. Head Start can provide the Flint families affected by the disaster with early intervention services that they desperately need. But in order to do so, all families eligible for Head Start, not just presently participating, need to be able to access Head Start, and we need to come up with the money to make that possible. But make no mistake, we should not expect the fix to this crisis to be easy or cheap. The impact of lead exposure on young children is lifelong lasting, and our response must have a long-term approach. We must use all the tools available to us, starting with prenatal care and screenings for pregnant moms, early intervention to identify special education needs, Title I funding from ESEA, after-school programs, even investments in college access efforts. Our children's futures have been compromised by bad governmental decisions, but we know how to mitigate that damage, and the response has to be more than just the infrastructure improvements and repairs to finally provide clean water. We need a comprehensive response, and members of the Committee on Education of the Workforce will be working to formulate the appropriate response to the educational challenges, and other committees will work to the responses within their jurisdictions. But one thing is certain, it is imperative that these resources be provided now without delay. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much.